Well, welcome to part two of the weekly Q&A video. Make sure you check out part one, which was the sports-related questions. Tried to split them out because you have some folks that care only about the sports opinions and some folks that also care about the political opinions, And it's one of these things that I try to keep them separated as much as you possibly can, although politics creep into sports, sports creep into politics. Nonetheless, it's not just a political thing. It's like more of like a life Q&A, if you will. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody that submitted your questions here. Maybe going forward we'll do a little bit of this where one of them's related to sports, and then we'll do one Q&A that's related to life stuff, or maybe I'll do it one's one week and one's the next week, so that way I don't have to record two different ones every week. I don't know yet. I'll try to figure that out as we go along. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get to today's questions. I think we'll have some good ones here. At _Keys10 kicks us off by asking, as of today, who's winning the election? Well, I think this is a situation where you have to remove your personal biases. This is a situation where you have to kind of read the tea leaves, and you got to kind of look at some of the empirical data that you see. And you also got to realize that you kind of got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. As you learned in 2016, where a lot of the polls in the battleground states were pointing to 1 to 3 or 4 point victories for Hillary Clinton, we saw that play out in some of the states where that didn't happen. And Donald Trump ended up being president. So I will caution, even now, we're talking about, August 10th or whatever day it is. You're still almost 3 months away from the election. And I'm trying to get it past any of the politics of what the current president's trying to do to the USPS or what's going on here, what's going on there. Like, he's trying to stick to the nuts and bolts. Like, for an incumbent like Trump, he always has a built-in inherent advantage because he is the known commodity, whether people like the known commodity or not. He also is in a situation where he has a very passionate and loyal, consistent fan base of 40-ish plus % of the country that will never deviate from him, no matter how bad he does at something or no matter what he does, good, bad, or otherwise. So the challenge is like, is he able to appeal to moderates? Is he able to appeal to independents? And it's kind of the wrong framing of the question, because it doesn't matter if he does that in 50 states. It only matters in a few states, which is why the whole electoral college system is kind of stupid, because it always comes down to just a few states. And that's just really dumb. It's like those states matter every 4 years and nobody else does, and then we get back to none of the states mattering the rest of the time. Right now, Biden would clearly have some advantage or some tailwinds behind him, propping him up. The fact that he's not Trump, the fact that in some ways he can latch on to the Obama legacy a little bit, although I would question, like, if you get him out there and the more you expose Joe Biden, like, the way to answer the old out-of-touch white guy is with an even older, potentially more out-of-touch and equally as creepy white guy. Like, seems like a very flawed logic here. Now, there's certainly a chance that he may do a little bit better with the Black and Latino votes than Hillary did. But if he continues to open his mouth, that very well might not be the case. The economy, security would be things that typically a GOP candidate would run on. And especially in the case of Trump, like if the election was a year ago, he could sit there and point to the stock market and different things, even though in no way, shape, or form should those be considered complete or total metrics of economic success or failure, or even the jobs numbers themselves. He could point to those types of things. He could point to no terror attacks on U.S. soil, and it could potentially be very hard to beat. Now, he doesn't have the economy so much anymore. But of course, the Democrats being idiots, if you start positioning this in a way where you can't get a deal done to do some COVID relief packages, regardless of the politics, whether or not there should be. Just a simple fact of the matter of, if you're being perceived as Donald Trump is trying to give people some type of unemployment benefits extension that the Congress couldn't do, Republican and Democrat combined. Like, if you're going to blame one side of the aisle or other, just stop. It's all of them. Just stop. Full stop. All of them. But if you're now positioning it, especially if you're Pelosi and Schumer and those clowns that lead the Democratic Party, which is a clown show in and of itself, if you're now allowing Donald Trump to say, hey, yeah, maybe I didn't do the most constitutional thing, doing these executive orders for things that deal with purse strings that are clearly outside of my scope, but I was trying to give student loan relief and give some form of payroll protection. I was trying to do something with deferral of the payroll tax, which is a whole different thing and is not as advertised or promised. Then you start running into a situation where the president potentially comes out a winner on it. So right now, I could say it looks like Joe Biden could win, but man, in the next 3 months, a lot could change. A lot could change. And I would be equally less surprised if Biden won a big victory come November, or if Donald Trump won by a similar margin to Hillary, to when he faced Hillary in 2016. Could be another situation where Biden wins the popular vote by 3-4 million votes, and Trump still wins the votes in the states that actually matter in our current system and still goes on to be president. I mean, that can certainly happen. California EST 96. Should I get second credit? I heard it's a good idea to have 2 lines of credit. When you say second credit, are you talking about credit card? Are you talking about some type of installment loan? Like, I would need to know a little bit more details about it, and perhaps you could shoot it to me on Twitter and I could better answer it there. I get kind of hesitant in some respects because you'll see a lot of people have a lot of opinions when it comes to credit, and they frankly don't know what the hell they're talking about. Somebody who's worked in banking for many years and deals with credit and deals with different things. I'm not the 100% guru credit expert, but I guarantee I will give you a lot better advice than a lot of these other folks that pretend to know what the hell they're talking about, especially when it's your friends or your family members or so forth. Here's what I would say. Like, if you have 1 line of credit or 1 credit card, getting a second one, if you can, if you qualify for it, certainly is not a bad idea. Use it how people that are well off use it. Use it specifically to pay for things that you would otherwise pay cash for, like groceries, gas, and so forth. Utility bills, and then come back and hurry up and pay that, so that way, even if the statement cycles and you've got that 25-ish day grace period before the due date where if you pay it in full, you're not going to have the interest assessed. You could sit there and do that and never have to worry about paying any interest. And potentially, especially if you're strategic enough and you get a card with some type of rewards on it, now all of a sudden you're talking about, I'm making these same purchases that I make for cash, but I'm now using a card, buying myself even a little more time to potentially pay that off. And oh, by the way, I've got rewards. The issue is not credit cards and interest rates and different things. The issue is consumers and poor strategy and utilization and how they use credit cards. Yes, rates are ridiculous and fees are ridiculous and all of that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, though, is that if you play the game right and you play the system right, you could really come out smelling like roses. And if you can figure it out, like, try to determine if your bank, like if you got a second credit card, try to determine, do they report high balance of utilization, or do they only report what the balance is at time that the statement cycles? Because if they only report statement balance versus actual high balance, then you're talking about you could run it up to that $1,000 or $1,500 credit limit and pay it off before it cycles, and your utilization still looks really, really, really good. But those are a lot of things. I would say connect with me on Twitter. And ask me that question. Give me a little more context of what your situation is. Because again, like, I don't know the situation. I don't know your financial situation. I don't know your household income. I don't know, like, what your expenses are. Like, those are things that you have to factor in here. As a general rule, though, would it be better for you to get a second line of credit of some kind? Absolutely. And credit card certainly is a great way to do that. Having revolving credit on there is key, but having some type of diversification in terms of your credit portfolio. If you have a car loan, you don't have a car loan, you probably should get one at some point. Mortgage loans, some type of installment loan. Like, there are different ways to go about it. But yes, those are certainly things that I would encourage doing. At Barbarino asks, some schools are opening, some aren't. Give me your takes. We can't stay isolated and closed up forever. And due to the lack of leadership on this across the spectrum here, we're in a position where you're getting close to school starting. In some cases, school have started. And you're running the risk of putting kids at danger. And, even if you say, well, kids aren't as likely to get it, their rate of contraction is lower, or their rate of fatality is much, much lower, I think it's really challenging to sit there and tell a parent, hey, you know what, you need to risk it. And even if it's only 1 out of 100, like, you put 100 kids in the gymnasium, let's say, pretend it's a pep rally, but the pep rally is, hey, out of this 100, one of these kids is dying. And you put the 100 sets of parents in the stands. You think they'd like to play that game? I find it funny, like, we can't govern mask mandates, but man, we could sure govern things like length of shorts and length of skirts and whether somebody's pants fall past their ass crack. You have got to be kidding me. That is just dumb logic right there. If we want schools to open, fine. Then we need to do some things to make that happen. Mandatory mask, and talk about like real like N95 types of masks. Consistent testing, temperature checks, like those types of things. If you could support that, then maybe we should have some level of people going back to school. Because my concern with kids being out of school and out of that environment is not just from an education standpoint. It's more about like the social interaction. Like the biggest thing about school, which is always the thing I've kind of questioned a little bit about homeschool, is part of going through school is the growing up process of learning how to interact with others and deal with certain social interactions and different types of environments and different types of situations that you're not going to get in a home or virtual type of environment. You're just not. It's just different. It's the same thing with work. Like the experience of doing a bunch of Zoom meetings is entirely different than meeting with a bunch of people face to face in a conference room. It just is. I find it ironic and hypocritical, and not surprisingly, that a lot of political leaders that are sitting there and saying, "Well, the schools need to reopen," will be the same ones that'll be first to not send their kids back to school. So, it is what it is. Tyson Urban 1, any political issues you agree with conservatives over liberals on? That's a great question. First one that probably comes to mind, I'm sorry, you should be able to have some type of proof of identification via some form of picture ID in order to vote. I gotta have it to buy alcohol or cigarettes or cigars. Should be able to have some type of ID. And I'm sorry, but if you're 85 or 90 years old and you don't have a picture ID, I don't know that I want you voting in the election. Sorry, it's just the way it is. Another issue I agree with conservatives on is universal background checks. Even the majority of conservatives agree with kind of the basic common sense thing of universal background checks for gun purchases. Like, this is not a hard thing. Like, to me, you got to be really almost a nut job not to support that. You talk about other gun legislation and some of those things, and different debates and different conversations to have, certainly. But you go through a more stringent process to buy a house or get a car, get some of these other things, get approved for a place to live, background check. I would certainly agree with that. I would also say that I certainly do not agree with liberals in terms of the notion of we just got to tax the wealthy and we just got to tax the wealthy. Sometime point in time that becomes counterproductive. The whole thing about pay their fair share. You can raise the rates to kingdom frickin' come, but if you don't eliminate the deductions and you don't eliminate the other loopholes, it doesn't matter. You can set the base rate at 80%, and if you still have all those loopholes in there, you're still going to have companies that don't pay crap in terms of income taxes. And even then, is that the right conversation that we should be having? I certainly would like to say that we should have a lower tax rate in general and get more bang for our buck with our tax money, which a lot of conservatives, I think, would agree with. Where I would differentiate significantly is we don't need to do that by militarizing our police and investing the amount of money we do in our military. That's just irresponsible and totally and completely reckless. But I think about something like that. But it's not just like income tax at the federal level that kills people. It's the taxes on all of your purchases. It's the taxes on your utility bills. It's the taxes on your property. It's your taxes on this crap and that crap and that crap. Even when you talk about federal income tax, it's just one small part of a much bigger, larger picture. What is the actual rate of true taxation that you endure? It is significantly larger, and it does disproportionately affect working and lower class people. But the whole thing of doing a wealth tax in and of itself, there is an element there as part of our system. There is going to be a bit of an element of some people are going to get left behind. That's just the nature of the beast. And in some ways that's okay. In some ways that certainly is not. I would agree with some conservatives and a lot of conservatives, I suppose, that socialism in and of itself is not the true answer. I would also strongly disagree with the conservatives that free market capitalism is the only answer. Our system right now, if we better manage the kind of hybridization between capitalism and socialism, we'd probably be in a better place. I also don't like bailouts. There's definitely things that I can agree with conservatives on, that's for sure. Dylan Schwartz asked, during this unique time of social distancing and no sports until recently, How have you been, and what, if anything, have you been doing with any additional free time that you've had? Additional free time that I've had. I've been working more than ever since we've been in a work from home environment, so I haven't been free time. Hence, you saw like a couple of months I wasn't doing any damn YouTube videos at all. How have I been, and so forth? Not good. Like, really? Like, being kind of in a bubble, isolated at home all the time gets old really quickly. Um, not really having a place to go. Like, it's been rough. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's been rough. And I'm kind of over all of it, frankly. Trying to do more. I took a vacation this past week and trying to do more as I get back to work. Like, I don't appreciate the extra effort you put in anyway, so why the hell would you continue to do so? Like, capping myself and saying, here's the number of hours I'm going to work, and that's it. I'm not giving you past a certain time of night anymore. I'm not giving you the weekends anymore. Why? Because you don't recognize it anyway, so why the hell would I do that? That would be insanity, the definition of it. The stupidity of doing the same crap over and over again and expecting the rewarded behavior to be any different when it's not. I've gotten used to it. Ironic thing is that long term, like, I really wonder if I want to go back to working in kind of a brick and mortar environment, if I want to continue to enjoy some of the flexibility that I'm afforded with a work from home type of situation. Storm 2817, another question. Are you doing okay in these times? I just kind of talked about some of the challenges that I've had, I think, but now that sports are coming back and I'm going to make a bigger commitment to not give as much of myself to work because they don't deserve it. They haven't earned it. And I need to better balance my life, and I've missed doing this. Like, I think I'll be doing better going forward, honestly. JTone007, you spoke about the midlife crisis before. What do you think many men feel that way in their late 30s and beyond? Is there a way to avoid and overcome those feelings? I think for me, I'll just speak to me. I can't speak necessarily to other men, but to me, it's kind of like you feel like it's kind of that crossroads, like the halfway point of your life, where you realize you're still somewhat young, but you're not nearly as young as you used to be, and you're not as young as you maybe would like to be. And you start to think a little bit more about your mortality, and you start to think about what you've done with your life, what opportunities you've missed, what mistakes that you've made, and you start to worry a little bit like, can I really make the most out of the rest of my life, or am I being too beat down by life? Do I have too many obligations? Do I have too many challenges, and so forth? For me, what also added to it, like, you figure when I was, what, 32, I moved out here to Richmond, and for somebody, we're not together. Haven't been together. I think it's been, what has it been, 2 years now. So now I'm in a place where I don't have an infrastructure, I don't have friends, I don't have family. The reason that I moved out here is no longer a thing, and then that's best for both parties. Don't get me wrong there, but you spend, like, I spent the entirety of my 30s with one person. Like, you think you're going in one path and you're going in one direction, and then it doesn't happen. Like, you've spent a lot of time, and admittedly that same person did with themselves too, so it's not just about woe is Jeff. It's just saying, like, now you get to it and you're like, well, what the hell do I do next? I don't have any friends out here, I don't have any family out here, I don't know much of anyone out here. Like, that was my life, that is not my life anymore. Now what the hell do I do with the rest of my life? Now, me, looking 40 at March, like, I think about so many things. Like, I would impress upon everybody, please try to avoid living life with regrets as much as you possibly can, because it will eat you alive and consume you, and at times it certainly does, and I've been kind of going through that the last year or two. I just don't feel like the same motivations. Like, you got hormonal changes in your body, you got body changes, you just got a lot of changes, and there's been a lot of crap going on the last year or two. Like, a way to overcome and avoid those feelings, the best thing I could tell you is squeeze the juice out of life each day as much as you can. Pretend that tomorrow is not promised to anybody up to and including yourself. No regrets. Make the most out of it. If you got things that you want to do, F it. Do them. Don't wait. Do you want to be sitting there in another 20 years and having that issue happen? Yeah, but the midlife crisis, I used to joke with people all the time about it and make fun of them for it. And I knew someday my karma would probably come collect, and lo and behold, it freaking did. And it's fantastic. But I survive. I will get by, as I always do. Vinny asks, did you sense protests like these coming for the last several years? Well, to be fair, you had Occupy Wall Street, you've had other Black Lives Matter protests, you've had other protests throughout the years. So, yeah, sure, certainly could see them coming. I could also see that not a lot of change is going to come as a direct result. And that's sad and that's tragic, but that's the reality. That's a fact. Like it's like the whole populace is being worked by the state-run, corporate-owned media, and just having that sensationalism wedge driven between them, and they're all getting worked. It's like a really intricate, complex, well-done professional wrestling angle at this point. That's what's happening. So yes, certainly consensus protests, they're not going to stop. They will continue in some capacity for years to come, and unfortunately, probably not a lot of changes are going to happen. Because the true evil of it, or genius of it, depending on your perspective, is that the systemic infrastructure that's been put in place by white America is so intricate, so deep, that the only way it's going to ever truly change, unfortunately, is that majority of the populace, white America, is going to have to be the driving force behind that change. Or those things that are being detrimental to non-white Americans and impacting and ruining lives of non-white Americans will have to trickle over into white America for all of a sudden white America to say, you know what, now it bothers me too. Now I give a crap. Now I'm not Karen or Susan or Stephen anymore. Now I am woke. But yeah, no surprise, the protests are coming, and they'll continue. After 2020 is over, do you think 2021 will be a continuation or a return to normalcy? Probably more continuation. I don't know what our new normal is going to be, but I certainly don't expect a lot of normalcy. You might see some things calm down maybe a little bit, but and even if it's normal, like, is it really normal, or has it just become our normal because we're so messed up? And that's it for this week's Q&A video. I want to thank you guys again for your questions here. I talked about a wide variety of topics. Had to put the other laptop down. Thank you guys again for watching. Look forward to doing these again real soon.